All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to talk more about Aaron Rodgers, him commenting on the Egypt trip, as well as, some other things as well, talking about his relationship with Robert Saleh as well. So this is what he had to say. Talking to the media, Rodgers went over his decision to travel to Egypt, a country he's been a fan of for 3 decades. So that's, one thing that he said. He also said, I made it a point to be at every OTA. I was at the physical day as a part of the mini camp. Missed the 2 practices, had talks with all my teammates about it. I think they understood it was more of an issue outside of the building than it was inside of the building, which is what they continue to say, that they weren't bothered by Rodgers' decision to go on this trip. And he said, Robert and I are great, meaning Robert Saleh. We had great conversations throughout the offseason, had a fun one last night in his office until later on. It is what it is. I'm an adult. I knew what I was getting into. I knew the fine that was coming and also knew how much I wanted to be in Egypt. I wish there hadn't been a conflict scheduling-wise, but it was what it was. And let's see if there was anything else he had to... Oh, I think it's going to take a little time. I feel great. The numbers... We track all the numbers out west where I work out and have for a decade. My movement stuff is tracking this exact same as last year, actually a little bit stronger with some of the squatting that we did. I just need the reps. The last 5% of being 100% is just the mental part. And then he also said it's been a goal. The beauty is every single year there's 8 to 12 teams, maybe probably less, but 8 to 12 teams that can actually do it, meaning, winning a Super Bowl. And we're one of those 8 to 12. All right, so that's speaking very confidently there. Yeah, it's just, look, and again, you have disagreements because, there's 2 sides. One that thinks it's a big deal that he wasn't at minicamp, and then you have the other side that said it's not a big deal, which I said it's not a big deal. But I also did say I do get it because you're coming off of an injury, you're trying to get on the same page with your offense, and by missing that time, you're missing time to build the rapport with your receivers, and because you really didn't get to play with them last year because you played in a preseason game. You played what did he play, a series or 2 against the Giants, which he threw a touchdown pass to Garrett Wilson, and then only played 4 snaps against the Bills last year. So that is where I'll agree. Yeah, then maybe you should have tried to schedule that trip a different time. But it's interesting because it's like he should know when minicamp is. So wouldn't you try to schedule around that so you're not cutting into practice time? But I don't know. But it's just, it's funny how, you watch all these, sports shows and you listen to the sports radio, and it's just, most of the hosts will say, they're giving what Rodgers wants. Because they say how, Rodgers likes the attention and things like that, but that's what they're doing by. But when Aaron Rodgers makes news, so if he's making news, yeah, you got to talk about it. But yeah, I mean, the Jets have continuously said that it wasn't a big deal, and they were fine with it. But I mean, that doesn't mean that fans should be fine with it, and like I said, people in the media shouldn't be fine with it. They have their opinion, and I have mine, and mine is, I don't think it's a big deal. Because he did go to OTAs, which are voluntary. He was there every single day. And now he's at training camp. It's not like he missed all of that. And it's July 25th. Their first game is September... Let's see. So the season starts September 5th, right? Their first game is on September 9th. We're not even in August yet. There's plenty of time to get those reps. But I get it. I get it. You played 4 snaps last year. But I mean, I don't know. Listen, he's one of those. He's been one of those topics this offseason where I've been very repetitive, and I just want to see him take the field against the 49ers so we can have a different conversation. How does he play coming off of this injury? How is the offensive line going to be? There's just a lot of conversations that I want to get to, but we still got some time before that. And also, there's been discussion I know on ESPN, they were talking about should he play in the preseason. I said I think he should play at least a series. Just to get himself back into, so he could get up to game speed a little bit. Because a lot of times, before when it was 4 preseason games, I think the third one was always the dress rehearsal, now the second one is the dress rehearsal. I mean, again, if they don't want to do that, unless you want to just have Tyrod Taylor go out there and he plays with the first team, then that's fine. But I don't know. I feel like Rodgers should at least play a series, a drive. And if he doesn't, so be it. But that's just my opinion. I think he should at least play a little bit. But, again, he's coming off of a major injury, so you could also say, well, they don't want to get him hurt. But he could also but then again, he could get, and I said this, you could say that, but then there's a response to that. Well, he could get hurt in the regular season anyways. So, the biggest thing, I think, is the offensive line. They got to be able to protect him. Because if they don't protect him, and we see what we saw in the preseason and in week 1 against the Bills for those couple plays, it's not going to be good. That's really how it all starts, is up front. And if it's a disaster again, you're wasting another year with this defense. Because this defense is not getting any younger. Now, I say that like they're an old defense. They're not. But you're wasting the prime years of this defense. If Rodgers gets hurt again, they're done. And no disrespect to Tyrod Taylor. Then they actually have a backup quarterback with Tyrod Taylor. No more Trevor Siemian. I almost said Blake Boyle or Tim Boyle. Getting him and Blake Bortles mixed up. But yeah, they're done if he gets hurt. And I've taken that optimistic approach to the Jets. I'm more optimistic than some Jet fans are. Because you know what? Somebody has to be. And this team has a lot of talent. And if Rodgers is healthy, they are going to block out the problems that Jet fans may have with Nathaniel Hackett and Robert Saleh. If Rodgers plays, you're not going to have to worry about that because he's going to run the offense and the defense is going to be like, hey, we finally got an offense that can actually back us up, and that's going to motivate them. Now, they still got some other issues that they got to address because Hassan Reddick, who they traded for, he's looking for a new contract, and who knows what's going to end up happening. And if they have to move off of him before the season starts, that's going to look really bad on Joe Douglas. So, yeah, they did place Hassan Reddick. My friend sent this in our sports chat. So, yeah, they did place Hassan Reddick on the reserve did not report list. So, who knows when that's going to get resolved. But, yeah, you can't waste the prime years of this defense. So, you got to hope that Rodgers stays healthy. But, again, the offensive line has to perform. And you can't say the Jets didn't try to address it. They got Tyron Smith. They drafted a tackle in case he gets hurt. John Simpson, right? Bring him in. Traded for Morgan Moses. You hope Vera Tucker comes back. I mean, they addressed the offensive line. Now it's just got to gel, and they got to stay healthy. And that's really the biggest thing is health. Because if, guys get hurt, that's going to be their downfall. I mean, that's going to be their downfall that'd be a downfall for a lot of teams. But it's just, because Tyron Smith has got an injury history. Rodgers, it's, and you got Mike Williams as well coming back off an ACL, and he's a guy that's gotten banged up over the course of his career. Guys got to stay healthy. But it really starts up front. The offensive line, I'm going to say it right now, the offensive line is really going to determine what kind of season the Jets are going to have. Because if they gel and they play well and they stay relatively healthy, Rodgers is going to be fine. But if he's running for his life at 40 years old, he's going to get hurt. And what does that mean for Breece Hall? They can't block for him. So, yeah, it all starts with the offensive line. But, yeah, look, people are going to say that it was a big deal that Rodgers didn't, go to mandatory minicamp. I get it. But, like I said, we're not even in August yet. They play on September 9th. That is the first game that they play. And you got the preseason, if Rodgers does play in that. Even if he doesn't, you're still practicing around those times. There's still plenty of time. I get it. He's coming off of an injury. He's 40 years old. You haven't really played in a game with your Jets teammates, but I think they're going to be fine. And if they're not, listen, I'll come on the show and I'll say, yeah, I was wrong. But right now we got some time before then. So, but let me know what you guys think about Rodgers. How do you feel about him skipping out on mandatory minicamp? And how do you see him performing this year with the Jets? Let me know in the comments. So we're going to take our next break. When we come back, we'll talk about another quarterback. We'll talk about Josh Allen. Brandon Beane, the GM of the Bills, coming to his defense because of some criticisms with Josh Allen, which there has, it's kind of always been there, but he had some comments, so I wanted to go over that as well. So with that being said, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.